Hi, I'm Rebecca Eaton, Coordinator of Library Services here at Sandburg, and welcome to the Makerspace. Today, we're going to learn how to make stained glass butterflies using wood and acrylic sheets cut from our Glowforge.
Alright, so when we're working with the Glowforge, the first thing that we'll want to do is have an image file on hand for, either cutting or engraving in our material. With something like Pixabay, which is where I'm searching right now for a butterfly image, you can actually search for vectors, which just means that it has a transparent background. Now keep in mind when you're using something like Pixabay, when you download you do have an SVG or vector file option, but you can't actually do that unless you have an account with Pixabay. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and do a JPEG or a PNG, which is just your typical image file, and then we'll open that up in Adobe Illustrator. Now keep in mind you don't have to use Adobe Illustrator, that's just what we have on our Makerspace computer. You can also use free design software like Inkscape at home. You can also use things like CorelDRAW. So what we're doing here is we're opening a new artboard. Our default template is 39 inches by 23.75 inches. It's just sort of our typical usage there. We'll click OK. And then we'll want to choose File and Place. And then that's where we can take that image that we just downloaded and place it on the artboard. Now you'll notice that it still sort of has that outline to it. What we'll want to do to actually trace it is select the image and then go to Object, Image Trace, and Make and Expand. And you'll see that it brought up a lot of little dots here. And so those are the points that the Glowforge will actually trace later. So we'll go to File, Save As, and we'll save it as an SVG file. And what that does is it just gets rid of that background and only takes those line drawings that we see that we want. And that's where it's going to cut. So then you'll give it a descriptive file name so you can find it easy later. Alright, and then most of the time you can just leave everything as the default and click OK, and it will automatically save that file for you as an SVG. Then we'll close it out and we will open the Glowforge print interface. Now this is online and you do have to have a Glowforge account. If you're using the Glowforge in our Makerspace though, you can just use our account from the library. It's just under my work email address, that R-Eaton that you see there. From there you would click down and it would give you the option to get to the print interface. But right now we're just going to use the bookmark that I have on this computer. And you can use this too if you come to the Makerspace. Anyone, including community members, are welcome to use the space free of charge. So from here you have the option to either create a new file, and from there you would just upload your image, or if you've already downloaded this file in Glowforge before, you can just open the file again, which is what I'll do here. Once you're on the print interface, you'll want to select a material type. For this, I chose to use medium maple hardwood, even though this is Baltic birch, just because that's a pretty general material and it recognizes it as proof grade. That means that it's going to automatically input all of the settings that you need for that material type. So we're ignoring part of the file and we're cutting the other, and that just means that it's going to cut the appropriate lines where we want it to. And here you'll see all of your settings input automatically, and it just tells you how many passes, which you can put in manually if you want to. It also tells you the focus, which is sort of the depth or thickness of the material, and then also the force and the speed that it's going to put onto the material. So you can resize it, you can duplicate it if you have more room on your material, and then you can click print. When you do, it starts to scan the bed of the Glowforge, and this just means that it's making sure that everything's lined up properly and that the camera will recognize where the laser is going to cut. Now at this point you can still cancel it. There is going to be a point, which you'll see soon enough, where the button will be glowing and you need to push it in order for the laser cutter to start. At any point during that process, you can cancel it. You can still even cancel it while the laser is in the process of cutting. Here in a moment, you'll see that it will give you an estimated time for how long it's going to take to cut. Whenever you are using the Glowforge and the laser is active, you'll want to make sure that you're using the protective goggles that are available, because staring at the laser can burn your retinas. You know, it's the same idea as, you don't want to stare into the sun or any other bright lights. Just to protect your eyes, make sure you have those goggles on. Right. Now that I have my goggles on, we are going to push the Glowforge button that's glowing and flashing, and once we push it, the Glowforge will start cutting. Even though I set the computer up to do a wood cut, I made a mistake and accidentally forgot to hit the record button. So to show you what the laser cutter actually does, this is the example of the acrylic that I was cutting for the wing inserts. The material used here was a 1/8 inch thick clear acrylic sheet. Alright, so the Glowforge likes to say, it's magic time, and you get to see it do its countdown on the computer, and then also see that that's when it's finished up in the Glowforge. Right. And then it does say that you should leave the lid closed for a little while just to cool down, and also to make sure that you're not getting as much, as many fumes or as much of a smell coming out of the machine, because it does get kind of stinky when you're, cutting stuff with a laser. Right, and so at that point you can lift your lid and take out your materials. Something that I didn't mention before that we didn't get a chance to record during this process was that whenever you're putting materials in the Glowforge, you really want to put a protective layer over it. What we use in the Makerspace is masking tape, and that's pretty common when working with a Glowforge or other laser printer. And what it does is it protects the material from burning. That laser is really hot, and if you don't put a protective layer on it like the masking tape, what happens is that you get very singed materials, especially when you're talking about wood. The acrylic, the first time around when I cut it, just, so some of my mistakes, is that I forgot to put masking tape on both sides, and so what had happened was that one side was extremely singed, very black and charred, and we don't want that. We want a clear acrylic, and with our wood we want it to be a very clear wood color. Even if you're planning on staining it later, you really don't want that discoloration from the burnt wood. So that's what we've done, is we've put some masking tape on it, and it's very easy to take off later, which you'll see. A little insight into the material that we use. This is 1/8 inch thickness Baltic birch plywood. We tried to use 1/4 originally, and it was just too thick. Alright, so this is the part where we're going to take everything out, and we're going to remove the masking tape and any excess material from the butterfly. Any other design that you're working with when you're cutting, if you have anything that's sort of in the middle there, it's going to fall out, and that's intentional. That's a good thing. So then you have that clear design. It cut through, it was successful, and that's awesome. Alright, so you'll see there that we got all the masking tape off, and we had a lot of excess material in the Glowforge, and so we'll want to make sure to take that out just so that the next person who comes along can put their material in there and get started right away. That, and we just really want to keep the machine clean. Alright, now we're ready for that at-home portion for the craft steps. So first you'll want to lay down a bright sheet of paper. That's just so you can see the acrylic pieces later. You'll want to lay out your acrylic pieces from your kit and get your butterfly out. And then this next step is optional. So you can use a black or brown, permanent marker. You can use wood stain. You can use paint, whatever it may be. Again, it's whatever you have around the house. Just go ahead and color that butterfly in on the wood. And this just makes those colored acrylic pieces pop out a little bit more when you're doing that stained glass effect. So once that's done, we'll want to go ahead and color our acrylic pieces. Now I'm using Prismacolor markers and also some chalk markers and watercolor markers. You could even use paint at home. You could use markers if you wanted to, permanent markers. It's whatever you have at home. Just be sure to keep any acrylic pieces away from children and pets because they are super tiny. And then you'll also want to make sure that, you also have them around on hand. They're very easy to lose sight of, so you'll just want to make sure that you keep them around, which is why we have that bright color paper down. Okay, so you'll just want to make sure that you get that color in nice and smooth. You can go over it a few times, or you can leave it sort of wispy for some texture. With some of the markers that I used, which you'll see in a minute, like the watercolor markers or the chalk markers, it made a really nice textured effect that mixed in well later with the butterflies when you see the final product. But there's really no need to be perfect with it, just to make sure you get that color in, because it's gonna pop later. Alright, so what I used was clear glue, and you can use clear glue or a glue stick. I've tested both and it works. But the important part is that, if you're using clear glue, you'll want to use a paintbrush to make sure that you get the glue on there even, because otherwise it's going to get messy really fast. And you really don't have to dab that much on there. Just make sure you get a nice line on at least one side of the piece. You can do both. Then you'll find where that piece fits in the butterfly, and you will insert it, and then just sort of hold it there if you need to. Some will fit better than others right away. And just make sure that it gets stuck to the butterfly as much as possible. You might have to leave it sit for a minute to dry. Okay. So then, once you've completed one piece, then you'll move on to the rest and just repeat those steps until you've had all of your pieces inserted into the butterfly. You'll want to allow it about 5 minutes to dry before moving, and then you can hold it up to the light and see your beautiful butterfly. If you'd like to use any supplies from the Makerspace, come in and make your own, or even if you just need additional help, contact us at library@sandburg.edu. We'd be more than happy to help you. Thanks for joining in our craft, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.